Hey, good morning, folks. We're going to continue working on artwork for the supplement we're creating, Spelljammer Combat and Exploration. Give me a second here to go through my intro spiel, check my signal, make sure I'm coming through strong, intro spiel, and then we'll get to work here for maybe like around 100 minutes. So, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Oh, mic check, mic check. Sounds like I'm coming through A-OK. So, posts, and then I'm going to go ahead and broadcast my signal here across Reddit, Twitter, and Discord. So I'm going to go through my intro spiel while I'm clicking buttons real quick. If you're here in the future, hey future, be welcome to skip ahead a minute or so if you want to. But for us that are here in the present moment or haven't heard before, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements. I illustrate them. I publish them online, and I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition here for the past 5 years. There's a slew of links in the description down below. You can check out the other stuff that I've built before, and there's no cost for you to check out the previews. But if you like the work, consider making a purchase to support similar shenanigans as this. So, let's see. That's good. That's good. All right, cool. So let me go ahead and switch up my screen here a little bit for you guys to see what we got going on here. And so I just posted on Twitter. If you're still on the Twitter X platform, you can follow me at Phil Kearney if you want to get notifications of when I'm live in the future. Links to articles, as well as illustrations and sketches that I create. Phil Kearney, at Phil Kearney, Twitter X. There you go. Best way to support the channel overall is to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when I'm live in the future. We're trying to climb to our first major milestone, which is 500 subscribers. We picked up yet another subscriber this weekend. I really appreciate you being around, and hopefully other people think stuff that we do here is cool, and will jump on board with us. So I talk about, let's see, we're currently at episode 274. And we created this book cover back around episode 15. So you can jump into the playlist Wayback Machine here if you want to see all the other things that we've explored in the past. But so I talk about creating role-playing game supplements, publishing them online, illustrating them. Spelljammer's Adventures in Space was released in, August 2022 by Wizards of the Coast. And the largest criticism was the lack of depth of ship and space mechanics, that it was basically left to us to figure it out. So designers like us, we figure it out. So once we playtest the stuff, send it off to an editor, it comes back, the words are good. Then we will send it off to an editor to make the words smart. And when we get back from the editor, I will put it through, we'll break up the text onto different pieces, such as this, and we'll then take out each individual piece, drop it into Photoshop here for us to illustrate individually. Once all the illustrations are done like this, we'll reload them back into Photoshop, or back into the Word program. Once Word has all the images compiled, we'll seal it, drop it down into DMsGuild, and have a preview link for you down below. So today we're working on ranged mounted weapons. So I'm going to start sketching here. Well, I've already got some sketches in, so right now we're in cleanup. So we're going to make this a little sharper. Let's drop down here and see where we're at with these. Yeah, okay, so we have two weapons here. We have an Eldritch Cannon. Here's your Eldritch Cannon. Which is a magical device that can be used to make ranged attacks. A mounted weapon here, and then the other model is the harpoon flinger. You got a railing here. The harpoon flinger is from Descent into Avernus. It flings harpoons at people. So I'll probably just ramble on about the different types of weapons and stuff as I dive into this mess with you guys. So give me a second here. I think I can afford to duplicate this here. Flinger overall here. We're going to merge this here, merge that group. We're going to conceal that group. Let's get black and white going here. We'll fade this current art a bit into the background. How do I want to do this? Yeah, we're just gonna start carving on this and straighten up the and just clean up the line art. So there's that there. I've got a timer going to make sure I don't dive down rabbit holes any too much. Okay, so there's two types of weapons in the game, and we've looked at this before, but there's siege weapons and there's mounted weapons. Siege weapons are as you would expect, like mangonels, ballistas, trebuchet, gift cannons, the prow ram on a hammerhead ship. These are all very large weapons meant for ship-to-ship combat, and so those deal dice of damage and multiply the damage by 10. Like a ballista does D4 times 10 damage. Mangonel does D6 times 10 damage. Trebuchet does D8 times 10 damage. If you look at the damage that a ballista does, it's like 4d10. A mangonel does something like 8d8, and a trebuchet does 8d10. So it's pretty easy for us to translate those down away from just a bunch of dice that you throw to a single die times 10 that you throw to represent siege damage. And hey, Vengeful Jarl, I think you're new to the channel, my guy. We're making Spelljammer artwork today, and I'm talking through the differences between mounted weapons and siege weapons here, just for a quick giggle here for folks. Here's your. I don't have any artwork I need to put on this page because the page is already full of art. The different symbols that we have on our ships for ballistas, mangonels, trebuchets, and then of course giant giant cannons. Blah. But I can talk through these things during the process of me painting. So I have a significant hole in the page here for this text. So we fill the page holes with artwork, and I will ramble on and sing my song as I do so. But hey, what's going on? So I discovered your channel from the random Reddit post. Hey, great, man. Happy to see where you go. I've been working on Spelljammer rules myself, but just don't have the time for it to be done well. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I started working on vehicle mechanics in Descent into Avernus to have Mad Max convoy combat before Spelljammer was announced. And by the time the book got published in August, the Infernal War Machine mechanics were done. This was August 2022. So it was like from June, July, and August, we had built out the Descent into Avernus Infernal War Machine mechanics. We had been playtesting it in Descent into Avernus just to make sure that the rules worked before we put them out. Then they had Spelljammer publish for 5e, and then so when I looked at them, it was apparent that they worked with the with the Infernal War Machine mechanics that we had been building. They just work. All we had to do was upscale them to 10 times the scale. That's where our 550 and 5-foot combat scale mechanics came from. In Descent into Avernus, we were already playing with how fast those vehicles move. It'd be best just to depict them. If you're shooting weapons at each other, like Infernal, like these harpoon flingers or whatever else it is that you've got on your trucks. If you're going to be using this ranged combat and these trucks are going to be moving so fast, why not depict like on the road combat as 50-foot scale? And then if the two trucks get close enough together to be in the same 50-foot square, well then they're anywhere from a 10-foot by 10-foot space. The tormentors are 15 by 15, and then the demon grinders are gargantuan, like 20 by 20. But gargantuan's limited to expressing its language in 20-foot. Like it's basically 20 foot by 20 foot squares or larger. Like the Tarrasque is 50 by 70 feet in scale, right? So if you were to depict the Tarrasque on a 50-foot scale, it would occupy a 2x2 space. So when they announced Spelljammer and we looked at the mechanics, all the what little mechanics were in 5e folded in really perfectly with the Descent into Avernus mechanics that we had been building for the past few months prior to that. So instead of just moving forward and fleshing out the rest of Descent into Avernus, decided to go ahead and put it on hold and dive into the Spelljammer project. And now we're 16 months later, we're still finishing the book. But now, instead of it being like a 10-page tear out for just Descent into Avernus, it's now 106 pages. So we have basically everything you could possibly need to be able to conduct space combat with ships using the same 5e action economy that characters have, which you can check in the playlist. I don't have a quick guide as to which pages it is that we talked on it, but it's early in the document, so it's earlier, probably like around episode 220, somewhere around there. But here's all the object interaction actions or attacks, bonus actions and reactions that characters can take given the different roles that they play, and they can play multiple roles at the same time. So you can have a pilot also be a siege commander. So while you're piloting the ship with an object interaction to steer the ship, you can use your actions to issue commands for siege crews to attack. You can cast a spell yourself if you wanted to. And then depending on how many attacks you have per round would determine how often you can issue command to your siege crew to attack, which we've talked about a lot in the past few episodes. You can actually check like episode 272 for a walkthrough of the reload mechanics. And then you have your bonus action, which can do other things, and you have reactions. So a pilot could command a siege crew to attack while using the squadron commander rules to actually order an adjacent wingman ship to attack with you. So you can coordinate your attacks that way. But this is all happening in a 6-second round, because if you break down 100 million miles per day on a spelljamming ship, that's about 10,000 miles per round of movement, which means that you can move incredible distances if you don't automatically assume that your ship's slows to a crawl during combat. That we've spent time, maybe back around episode 160, talking about relative speed, where you can be, where two ships at the same time can be moving in the same direction, roughly 100 million miles per day, and still be able to maneuver in combat relative to each other, as long as you're still moving in the same line. If you're moving the same speed, that speed becomes invisible. And in comparison to 10,000 miles per day, me shifting movement around maybe 250, 400 feet per round to edge and maneuver and jockey for positioning with the other ships that you're fighting, that's inconsequential. So you can drop back down into normal movement of grid combat, moving back and forth and whatnot, engaging different ships with the understanding that everyone's moving in the same relative direction. And that kind of requires you to not be like in orbit around a planet. For instance, if you're moving 10,000 miles per round and you've got a 5-round combat, you're going to be 50,000 miles away from where you began. And if you're traveling between worlds, and this is just a pirate combat, like being chased down to be raided, then where you really are in the multiverse doesn't actually matter in that moment. It's just where are you relative to the ship that's attacking you. But if you're in orbit around, say, an asteroid base that you don't want to give up positioning on, then yeah, you could actually grind to a stop, maybe shift 200, 300 feet while you're taking shots at enemy ships. You're strafing across the fortress to try to defend it from incoming enemy ships. And if those enemy ships want to take a shot at your ship, they're going to have to slow down to the point where they can actually target, because you can't realistically fire a ballista more than a mile away and expect to hit the target. Or if you do, you have to expect that target's not moving. So that's what we call seeing it a mile away. So you have relative speeds. If the relative speed is 0, then the movement that you make on a map is absolute. If you're on a 50-foot scale and you move 6 squares, that's 300 feet of movement. If you're moving 100 million miles per day, that's 300 feet of movement relative to the ship you're flying with. If you're defending a stationary location, or if the battle is anchored around a stationary location, is probably the better way of putting it, then the actual movement that you make on a map is absolute movement relative to the object. And if you're orbiting, if the object that you're around is so large that you can use it as an anchor on your battle map and also moving forward, then both of those rules apply at the same time. It's just a matter of, is the object that you're orbiting so slow that you're basically considered stopped to orbit it and have combat around it, or is the map dynamic and moving? And if it's moving through the void where there's literally nothing for millions of miles, then it's effectively a static map, because there's nothing changing in the environment around you. And if you are looking at things that are changing around you, what's the scale of movement? Because a spelljamming ship can move 10,000 miles per round. So if you're strafing along an object for 2 rounds and then you're back in open space at 10,000 miles per round, that means that object that you just strafed past is 20,000 miles in size, which is like Uranus. Jupiter's like what? Jupiter's like what? 16 is like 30, 40,000 miles in size. So if you were to have combat off the in the rings of Jupiter, then you basically be looking at a scale map with 10,000 mile squares that Jupiter would be occupying a 6x6 space, and then your ships could be flying around in orbit around the planet. But to be able to zoom in and engage with the weapons that we use, you'd have to be within a mile of each other using 500-foot squares. So there's a lot of time spent in this book walking through scaling mechanics like that. And because it all uses the same 5e language, because these ships move so fast, you can do that. But the weapons they use are far more limited in scale, which is actually a really interesting aspect of medieval spaceship combat, that they don't have thousands of miles of reach like a laser would. So if I were to make a Kickstarter project out of this and extend it out to doing, like, you know, what is it? Pathfinder, Spacefinder, whatever the Piezo version of Space is, or any other what's another one of them? Like Star Wars could use it. Whatever, they have lasers, you know, like plasma stuff and blah blah blah, sci-fi stuff that doesn't have a short reach. The fun thing about D&D combat and Spelljammer distinctly is that the ships move really fast. But for them to actually be able to effectively attack each other, they have to slow down. They have to slow down to a crawl, like 500-foot scale, a mile, basically up to a mile of movement per round, to be able to actually engage each other in combat for the weapons to hit. Because if you throw a rock at somebody from over a mile away and they can literally see it coming, it's going to shift out of the way and it's going to miss. So you can't attack things that are aware of you if you're over a mile away, if they're capable of moving. I could launch a ballista bolt at a moon. And that moon has a predictable, such a slow rate of speed that I'm going to hit it. It's just that the damage it's going to do is inconsequential. So these are a lot of mechanics and physics that need to be broken down so that a DM can reliably utilize this type of system, and to be able to have the confidence of making rulings about how these systems interact with each other. So we've been as thorough as we can about different movement and interaction scenarios and different like maneuvers and interactions that you can use aboard ships and creatures. So you have all the tools that you need to be able to conduct any kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Arrow Flynn keeps coming to mind. There's a word I'm looking for, and it's escaping me right now. So I'm just going to read text instead. Like what you're saying. Hey, great. I've been up to 2-3 hour shifts so far. So I'll start looking back in your videos. It looks good. Hey, great, man. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I've been blessed so far that the ideas are good. You know, like the basic premise of the concept is good. It's certainly not my first rodeo in creating new mechanical systems. I created a 5-color mana spell point system for Magic the Gathering enthusiasts to use in Strixhaven and Theros, and originally in Ravnica. So I dive into heavy mechanical details. It's one of my hobby is creating solutions to 5e that don't exist. So far 5e had the color mana system had been my greatest accomplishment thus far, but I honestly think the Spelljammer system overshadows that, because it's only because it has a more universal application with the sense of scale and leading into siege combat with the siege weapon systems that we have, and like the reload mechanics that we use and blah blah blah. So I think this is I think this is as innovative with the scaling mechanics, but is more universally useful, because I'm going to leave these. I'm not going to worry about these strings right now, because we're just going to end up painting in a line to be the string anyway. So I'm going to get a handlebar here. Get into the mechanism as a lock. Basically, the way this harpoon flinger is that these two crossbow arms. There's a lever here that you hold, and you pull back on the lever, and it automatically cocks the shuttle arm. And when it cocks back, it drops this harpoon is in position. So the streams are taut, and all I have to do is pull back on the lever here, this handle that he's holding. All I have to do is pull back on the handle, and it'll pop latch. It'll release the stream. It'll fire, and it'll pull the lever forward. So then I'm just basically pulling back, locking and releasing, pulling back, locking and releasing. As long as I have harpoons loaded into the clip, it'll fire them over and over again as quickly as you have attack actions, which is pretty much exactly how they're described in Descent into Avernus. They just don't talk about the loading mechanism, and I technically don't either. It's just, here it is. It's a mounted weapon. Oh yeah, I was on a tangent there. Mounted weapons are so large that you can't realistically carry them around as a medium-sized creature and fire them. They have to be mounted to something. And in Descent into Avernus, they're mounted to the infernal war machines that are running around, the Mad Max, the Demon Mad Max trucks, which is a excellent flavor. I will say 5e Wizards of the Coast is pretty good about creating neat ideas and flavors for adventures, but don't follow through very well on the mechanics of them, which is great because, you know, folks that geek out on making mechanics like me, that's a very open sandbox for us to make things. And for folks that publish stuff on the DMsGuild or do Kickstarter projects or whatever, you know, if the ideas are good enough, people spend money on them as basically a vote of support. So that's exciting. And encourages, you know, it's taken 16 months for me to get from there to here. With 106 pages, we got an 80-page. It's got an 80-page document of mechanics, and then there's a 25-page conversion guide for Descent in, for Light as Araxis. So people that pick this book up, if they're wanting to see how they can actually utilize these mechanics in an adventure or a campaign, then we provide basically a conversion guide for using all of the mechanics that we described in this book, and have a practical example of, here, use them in Light as Araxis. And here's all the changes to the text that you need. Here's all the mechanics with the ships that you need. Here's all the maps that you need. Here's all the tokens that you need. So there's like 80 tokens that we provide for all the NPCs and the ships and the creatures, and then the maps of like the Citadel and like Topolus Towers, asteroid map, and Doom Space, and all the bloody blah. Everything you would possibly need to be able to actually run the adventure, we provide in here as basically added value. So trying to do the best we can to create, like, if we're going to create a project, you know, it's like, hey, use this instead of the other stuff. It really makes sense that we would provide a case study where you can see how all these mechanics pull together to actually be used in an adventure, to be excited about it. So yeah, I can actually use this in an adventure. This is awesome. And then from there you can just riff and do your own stuff. And once this is done, we'll be building our mecha and kaiju campaign book that uses the same mechanics in this book. It's just, instead of them being fish and insect shaped ships, they're people shaped, basically using the same mechanics. So there's two scales of ships. There's vessels, which are all the ships that we expect to see from the history of Spelljammer in 2nd edition, as well as in the book in 5e. But there's also fighter ships. See, vessels are typically larger than 50 feet, and all the ships that are in the Wizards of the Coast 5th edition, yeah, they're all larger than 50 feet. The smallest one is 75. So anything that's smaller than 50 feet is a fighter ship, and so fighter ships are too small, generally, like anywhere from basically like 15 feet to 50 feet in size, depending on, you know, how large of a gunboat you're running. But most of them are supposed to be cheap and expensive, and maybe can carry one siege weapon. If you're going to see a siege weapon on a fighter craft, it's going to be a ballista, because you can have it at minimum 2 crew firing a ballista, and so it makes it easier for you to have like a little skiff that you can run around on. But for the most part, you're going to see mounted weapons, like infernal war machines are anywhere from 10 to 20 feet in size, basically. Well, we scale that up to having Infernal War machines. You could have like these mega tank bosses that are up to 50 feet, like 50 feet long, 30 feet wide, like just big rigs, right? Like actual massive rigs. They're just bristling with weapons, Mad Max Convoy style. So that's the foundation of where Fightercraft came from. We just gave them wings and faster movement speed so they can interact with Spelljammer ships, but the mechanics stay the same. So they're too small to be able to carry more than one, realistically, more than one siege weapon, but they're bristling with mounted weapons like this. This is a mounted weapon. It occupies its own 5-foot space. If you were size huge, you'd be able to pick one of these up as a Gatling, chunk, 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 you know, be able to fire off rounds with it. But it's only doing, like the Sin and Avernus, the Harpoon Flingers do 2d8 piercing damage and basically have a 150-foot range. But if honestly a huge size creature, according to monster rules in the DM's guide, they would be doing by default, like a large creature would be doing 2d8, and a huge creature does 3d8 damage. Like you triple the dice of damage that you deal as a huge size creature. You use 2 dice as a large size creature. You use 4 dice as a gargantuan creature. So a fire or a stone giant or something could pick up one of these harpoon flingers and basically use it, fire them like a normal crossbow. But they could do more damage by themselves. It's not a practical weapon for them to use. So there's this really fun space for the DM, the players, where the weapons deal more damage, but the players can't practically just pick up and walk around with them. By the time they get a creature that's large enough to pick up and walk around with them, they aren't doing more damage than that creature could do on its own. So that damage for the mounted weapon stays in scale with what you expect D&D 5e combat to be. There's a 15 by 15 foot creature on the board. It's going to be pumping out maybe around 20 points of damage per hit. That in Harpoon Flingers are going to deal around 12 on average, which is great against pilots. These are anti-personnel weapons. You don't knock down fighter. You don't knock down a 250-foot hammerhead ship by pelting it with harpoons. You're going to need siege weapons to knock that down. But the creatures that are manning the mangonels, trebuchet, and ballistas on that hammerhead ship are absolutely at risk of being killed by these harpoons, because most commoners that run that are siege crew members only have anywhere from, like, say, 4 to 10 hit points. So a harpoon is a significant threat to crewmen. So that's going to be one of the obstacles that the team faces in having their crew targeted by anti-personnel weapons while they're trying to fire siege weapons at the ships that are attacking them. So we have this idea of tanking, of commanders tanking for their crew members. So if I've got a crew on, like, say, a ballista has 3 crew members, and they each only have 4 hit points each, and the ballista itself, say, has 50 hit points. That's what's listed as in the DMG, as well as Saltmarsh. It doesn't take a lot for a siege weapon that deals, like a trebuchet deals d6 times 10 damage. It could potentially destroy an enemy siege weapon in one shot. So if you're a pilot, is by default in command of the siege weapons aboard the ship. But any player can use a verbal action during their turn to take command of a crew, and then use their action economy to issue commands for that crew to fire and do whatever, make attacks and yada yada. But while a crew is under command, whoever's in command of that crew can use their own hit points to take damage for the weapon and for the crew. So if your crew is being shot by harpoon flingers that are dealing 10 damage, then it's going to kill them in one shot. And if you run out of crew members on your siege crew, you can't fire that siege weapon anymore unless you want to use one action per round to load a mangonel, aim it, and then fire the stone. It's going to take you 5 rounds to do that by yourself. But if you have a crew of 5 men that are your siege crew, you can issue a command to them for them to fire the weapon. And then we have the reload mechanics about how quickly can you reload the weapon during a round of combat to potentially attack with a weapon more than once. But if you're losing crew members, then that becomes more and more difficult, because the roll that you need to automatically reload gets higher and higher as you lose more and more crew. So the siege commander can take damage when you're in command of a crew or while you're piloting a ship. You can use your hit points instead of the Instead, you can let your hit points take damage for whatever it is that you're commanding. If you're commanding a ship, you can take damage for the ship. If you're commanding a siege crew, you can take damage for the crew members and for the siege weapon itself. So 20 points of siege damage is a shitload of damage to a 3rd level character that might only have 25 hit points. That siege weapon is going to deal enough damage to destroy my siege machine. But I can get heal of hit points. By the time I'm 5th level and have 45 some odd hit points, and a siege weapon is attacking my crew, well, my crew's okay. So if I'm going to attack with a siege weapon and the target is less than 50 feet in size, like a ballista or a person, the attack is at disadvantage. If I have any cover and I'm smaller than 50 feet in size, then siege weapons can't attack me at all because the cover prevents me from having a clear target. So it has to be something like siege weapons can, on their own, attack other ships that are 50 feet or larger, that are larger than 50 feet, like, you know, the size of the ship. If I'm going to attack something smaller where that damage is going to be devastating, it's either going to be at disadvantage or I'm not going to be able to attack it at all. Crew members gain cover from the siege weapon. So you can't attack individual crew members unless you're using these smaller scale weapons, which is why we have anti-personnel weapons at all. So you don't have to worry about cover. I mean, it's still going to increase the armor class of the targets that you're shooting at because it is cover. But it doesn't deny you the ability to use, like siege weapons are denied. So it forces you to use these smaller scale weapons that become tolerable if I'm going to have my crew shot at and I'm going to take the damage for them as a captain or as a commander for that crew, then that damage is only going to be a 2d6. It's going to be 2d8 damage. And by the time I'm like, say, 5th, 6th level, and I've got 40, 50 hit points, me taking 6 points of damage from a harpoon flinger for a crew member is within the curve of damage that you should be expecting 5th or higher level characters to take anyway, and your team can heal that damage, so your character can afford to be a hit point battery for the teams that they command. The siege weapon, like the ballista, is large enough that it doesn't have cover for itself unless it's on a ship that the structure of the ship is providing partial cover for the siege weapon. So now you have this idea of turrets that are defending the siege weapon. So now these siege weapons can't effectively attack anything on the ship except for the ship itself, thus further reinforcing the need to have anti-personnel weapons that are small enough to be able to target those small targets. And that damage is tolerable for your team to be able to take. Meanwhile, like a Hammerhead ship has 500 hit points. So a d6 times 10 damage coming off of a Mangonel Stone isn't damage that's so great that you won't just get one shot by an enemy ship, right? You've got 3, 4, 5, 7 rounds of combat that you have to be able to skirmish with these guys to decide, you know, are we going to close for boarding or are we going to try to escape? So, of course, we provide escape pursuit mechanics so that you can actually do that. And then we have the tactical combat at the 550-foot scale so that you can have melee combat with ship melee weapons or, again, firing anti-personnel mounted weapons or siege weapons at each other's ships and the people that are aboard them. So you're operating at these different scales of combat at the same time during a combat, so you have a lot more to do other than wait 20 minutes for a ship to close distance to board them and then have normal 5e combat. You can have normal 5e combat using ships at these greater scales and greater speeds and greater ranges of combat, with greater scales of damage affecting ships that can take 10 times the damage that characters normally can. So the damage that they're dealing with is 10 times the damage. And when your character's a high enough level to be able to take hits from direct siege machines, then you can realistically start substituting your own hit point pool for the damage that your ship takes, which we've talked about for the past 200 some odd episodes. So you can check out, anyone that's checking this stuff out, you're certainly welcome to dive into that content. But once this thing publishes on the DMsGuild, it's going to have, if you check in the description down below, you'll see, like, I have very generous previews of all the work that I do. Because when I make a book, I like to be able to reference the content in the book and give you guys a look-see at what it is that I'm creating here to see if you're willing to invest money in it without taking the risk of, well, you know, this is a $15 book or this is a $20 book or whatever it is, $5, $3. Doesn't matter. If you're willing to invest your money in the ideas, you really ought to have an opportunity to see what those ideas are And I find consistently that A, my stuff's not pirated because you can look at the whole thing anyway, and B, if people actually like it, it's affordable. It's less than a sandwich, you know. So if the ideas are good, I will give you hundreds of hours of entertainment. So thank you. I'm talking economics. I do that a little bit. Sorry. But yeah, so once the book publishes, there's going to be I'll do a walkthrough with you guys, and you can walk through the pages with me in the preview. And I'll be able to talk about all this in order, just like you know, hey, here's what we're talking about on this page. So here's my additional thoughts about it, and it'll be a little bit more organized than me having those thoughts, because you know I'm basically practicing talking about these ideas while I'm painting the pages. And by the time I'm done with the page, I'm pretty decent about talking about the subject matter that's on the page. So when we come back around and actually do the director's cut walkthrough of this, I'll have had plenty of opportunity to talk about this stuff with you guys before. But for anyone that's taking a look here, here's the I actually have I'll be posting these mounted weapons on a Reddit tear out, like a little video that I'll post on Reddit or across the net, probably this weekend. But here's the basic mechanics of an Eldritch Cannon. And here's your casting level, your crew rank, and the amount of damage it does as a mounted weapon. And then you can decide to spend a spell slot. This is for the Eldritch Cannon that we have down here. The Harpoon Flinger is very simple. It deals. Oh, I need to paint over that. Hold on. Harpoon Flinger, rail. Oh, this is the gear side over here. Let's peel this open real quick. Drop down to here. Get that out of there. Yeah, that looks better. There, like that, and then here. Clip that, and then down here. Clip that. Like that, and we can grab. No, wait, wrong one. Here we go. Like that. Square all those off. Cool. Framing is everything. So yeah, it deals 2d10 piercing, 2d8 piercing damage. While gravity affects you, it has a range of 120 feet or 480 feet, and its void range is 500 feet, and then long range is 5,000, which is basically a mile. It's medium size. It occupies a 5x5 space, which the weapon crew can occupy that space or be adjacent to it to fire it. Weighs 50 pounds. Armor class. It's a mounted weapon, so you can't actually attack these weapons separately. They're mounted to the frame of the ship, just like rams are. You don't attack rams separately. You attack the ship. The rams and mounted weapons in general are part of the frame of the vehicle, so they use the hit points of the vehicle. If you're attacking a harpoon flinger, the DM can decide that you can call shot that if you want to disable it, but it's meant to be. There are no rules about them being separate weapons, so they're just built into the frame of it. Just like there are no real rules about how many hit points of damage can a sword take, because you don't attack a sword. It's just an item. So there you go. And then, yeah, and then so you can deal siege damage with higher level spell slots if you're using the Eldritch Cannon, but we'll get to the Eldritch Cannon eventually. We'll talk about the Eldritch Cannon more when we work on the Eldritch Cannon artwork. For now, we're just going to keep working on this guy. Where are we at? 7:06. Yeah, we're doing good. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee here, take a break. So once we finish doing the cleanup on the line art here, we'll drop color in behind it, and then we'll merge the line art into the color, and we'll do texturing and all the blah blah to finalize the illustration. These are fairly technical illustrations, so I'm going to try to get the line work as good as I can, so that I have as minimal effort in integrating the line art to the color as possible. Character art is different. Like I'll be able to have a more organic approach with this gunner here. But with weapons and ships, items and equipment, I don't have the same organic freedom that I have with character art to be able to depict them more organically, more. Like I need to make sure lines line up on architecture and engineering, so that the machines make sense. Let's armor this guy up. We don't see a lot of him back here behind his machine, so I don't have to really worry about too much about what he's about. We'll have to get some legs in and stuff, and it'll be okay. Actually, I'm going to just... I'm just going to tear him out completely right now. And, do the build. Make me work for it, as they say in Magic. His head's at the wrong angle. That helps. So I'll probably get the sketch for this for the flinger done today. I hope I do. And then tomorrow we'll finish the sketch for the Eldritch Cannon, and then we'll colorize on Wednesday. We'll do detail on Thursday and Friday. Hopefully we can get the details for the flinger done on Thursday and the Eldritch Cannon on Friday, and be done with it. But there's also the railing and the background I need to worry about, the skyscape. So this could take. I may end up. I'm not sure. It'll probably be Tuesday next week that we're done. Or I may finish it on Saturday off stream, just to keep the ball moving. After this, I've got 3 more illustrations after this one for the combat chapter to be done. But I also have 8 diagrams I need to finish to make sure that they're expressed, like the fleet mechanics and squadron movement, and some other little details, most of it dealing with squadrons and fleets, and I need to make sure that the language is properly reflecting what the diagrams are depicting, so that there's so it's complementary and effectively transmitting the information. And so I may have to do some rebuilding or rewriting for the fleet and squadron section to make sure that the language is as solid as possible, considering the complexity of the subject matter. Being able to control multiple, like there's a big debate right now in 5e about what's the best way to resolve like conjure animals and stuff, like how to have swarms of animals at your command as part of a team with action economy that doesn't completely break the game. So like you don't issue one command and have like 40 attacks or whatever, like have a pack of 16 wolves making 16 attacks per round. That just breaks 5e action economy. So we have to address that idea in the form of a fleet. Fleets are basically swarms of ships. Squadrons are like a small set of, or like 3 or 4 ships, you know, kind of working in unison together, which unto itself is its own swarm. But then a fleet is like a swarm of squadrons that are doing thousands of damage and coordinated attacks per round. And there needs to be some decent mechanical language around that, which our mass combat system that the Infernal War Machine's vehicle mechanics had evolved from. So the fleet mechanics that we introduced in this book is actually a first look at our mass combat mechanics that we have. That will probably end up being a separate Kickstarter in 2025 or something like that. Whenever it is that we get around to doing it. We've got a number of projects on our plate, and mass combat is not our biggest fish to fry right now. But we'll get to it, and maybe I'll have enough momentum as a creator here on YouTube or, you know, my Patreon or wherever, that I'd actually be able to launch Kickstarter and succeed with it as a creative contents option or something, so that everyone would have access to these mass combat rules that I could, you know, get support in creating through the Kickstarter. That's the most interesting thing I think I like about the Creative Commons is like, hey, I'll publish this to the Creative Commons. It's going to be something that everyone will have access to. If you support my Kickstarter, I will be rewarded for having created this thing and distributed it to the public. It's a very interesting model for crowdfunding, open sourcing for 5e mechanics with D&D, and I like the idea of that. I just need to have enough support for me to be able to, you know, if I'm going to invest a year and a half, now that I know that a project like this, of this size, that I'm going to design, write, lay out, and illustrate, that basically 110 pages takes approximately 17 months for me to finish. Then if I have enough of a Kickstarter backing, then it makes it profitable for me to be able to actually do that. This book is absolutely going to lose money for me. There's no way I'm going to make $30,000 back on this project, which is about what I would need to make for me to break even, given the amount of design work and art that I've invested in creating it. But that's the problem with us indie creators, man. We don't count the cost. We just pay the price. And luckily for me, the only price I have to pay, since I can do all this on my own, the only price I have to pay is time. But for me to be able to expand and grow and to be able to produce these things more quickly, I need a team that I can I can pay reliably to help me produce with. So that's why I need to move into Kickstarters, which is one of the reasons why I started streaming, so that if people like the cut of my jib, maybe they'll stick around and help me build more stuff in the future with, you know, a pledge. So we'll see. If people think it's cool, we'll get there. If they don't, then at least I built it and I know that it's awesome. And you know, Bob can be my uncle. But we'll see. We'll see what the fates have in store for me. If it's my destiny, then I can never avoid it. I would at worst be kicking and screaming my way into success. If it's my dream, it'll feel like heaven. But we are fated, and our free will is how mature and composed we plan to endure the things that we're forced to have throughout our life. That is our free will. Destiny and free will do work together. You just got to use precise language. I'm happy with this dude. He's turned out pretty cool. He's got a lot of armor on him, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, the playtesting for this went awesome. I've certainly had the opportunity to mince and refine the text after getting it back from the editor to make sure that it fits in the pages well and that it's really expressing what I need it to express. And I don't see any significant logic holes in any of the new concepts that we're creating. I'm sure if it takes popularity that that someone will find flaws in it. But that's the great thing about only PDF, like PDF only, is as soon as somebody finds a mistake, I can patch fix it, improve the project, and re-release it at no cost because it's just a PDF. So if you check the descriptions down below, most of the PDFs that I have gone through some or even extensive revisions over time as I find flaws or find new ways to do the same thing. I don't create new PDFs and try to resell the same idea. I just go in and I fix the PDF that I built already to make it better, so that whoever was willing to invest in it initially just ends up getting better value out of it. So because that's how I believe things should be. Like that's my own ethics. In a touch. Yeah, so I think I'm going to show off mounted weapons and harpoon flingers, like the mounted ranged weapons. I think that's going to be my Sunday feed this week, and then I think the week after that we'll look at the ship lifestyles and crew costs, which is also pretty straightforward. So it's a little number crunchy at times, but you know, economics are, so there's always a little crunch when you're looking at, you know, lifestyles and downtime activities. But we fleshed that all out for ships, which I think is really important considering you're going to spend months and months at a time on a ship if you're running you know, a cross-system campaign, like going through the Astral and stuff like that. These are things that you need to know. So again, we're trying to provide an extensive set of consistent rules so that DMs can make rulings that either comply or deviate from the ideas that we present here. But if you at least have a frame of reference, you can either bounce off of it or lean into it. But the structure is there. And if it's a logical, sensible structure, then it's going to enhance and improve the game. Wizards has gone too far into the line of you know, rules don't matter, just make them up, because they haven't taught anybody how to make up rules. If Wizards was good about teaching DMs how to make good judgment calls and how to improvise ideas on the fly, then them implementing that philosophy in Spelljammer, or I'd say more so in Spelljammer than anywhere else, because we all expected ship combat rules and didn't get any. It's like that is like the primary example of, you know, you should provide more mechanics than you did to satisfy you didn't understand your audience, what your audience needed. So that's basically a research or marketing fail. But here, let me get rid of the G-string effect we have going on here. You start in armor, and then depending on the genre of game you're playing, you add more cover than what their underwear provides. But I mean, hey, you know, barbarians are a thing. I should probably kick this guy's legs out a bit. Broaden his stance some. So use the skew tool. We'll go free transform and skew. Actually, distort will probably work better for us because we can skew and shift perspective at the same time. Easy peasy. Do that. We'll distort again. When commanding more than one mounted weapon, add the reload score of all weapons together as a combined reload score and compare the results to the command die roll. If the command die roll results is equal to or higher than the combined reload score, all crews reload their weapons as part of the attack action, ready to fire again on the next command. If the result is less than the combined score, a single reload action readied all of the weapons together. For example, if you command 3 mounted weapon crews, the combined reload score is 3. So the reload score or crew is 1. You roll a command die. If you're first level with a proficiency bonus of +2, then there's a proficiency die mechanic. It's a variant rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide for 5th edition. You can look it up. It's called a proficiency die, and so we use the proficiency die as a means of, and we call it a command die in the supplement. And the command die determines whether your crew that you're commanding can reset their weapon as part of an attack. So what happens is when you command a crew to attack, you roll your command die. You have your ability. So when you make an attack roll, right, you have your proficiency bonus plus your attack modifier plus your d20 die roll. In the siege weapon system that we have here in these command mechanics, the attack roll for a command die instead is your ability modifier, a d20 plus the command die instead of your proficiency bonus. So first level characters have a command die of d4. 5th level characters have a proficiency bonus of +3, so they roll a d6. 9th level characters have a +4, so they roll a d8. 13th level characters have a +5, so they roll a d10. And 17th level characters have a +6, so they roll a d12. Again, this is a variant rule that already exists in the DM's guide. We're just repurposing it, kind of like how Reputation was repurposed into Renown in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. We're repurposing the proficiency die to be a command die for siege weapons. So a siege weapon has a reload score, and when you roll your command die as part of your attack roll, if the result of the command die is equal to or greater than the reload score, then your crew is capable of automatically reloading the weapon as part of the attack action, as was just described here. I'm going to take a quick tangent here because one of the pages that we already finished that I showed earlier, reloading multiple siege weapons. When commanding more than one siege weapon, add the modifier reload score of all weapons together as a combined reload score and combine the results of the command die. As a siege weapon, if the command die results is equal to or higher than the combined reload score, all crews reload their weapons as part of the attack action, ready to fire again on the next command. If the result is less than the combined score, each weapon crew requires a separate reload action before firing again individually or together. For example, if you command 3 ballista crews, each with a reload score of 2, the combined reload score is 6. So, like I was saying, on a command die, like a first level character, you roll a 2, 3, or 4 on your command die, a ballista will automatically reload so you can fire it again. It also only does d4 times 10 damage, the least amount of damage that any siege weapon can do. While, say, a mangonel or trebuchet has like a mangonel would be a 4 and a trebuchet would be a 6. So for a first level character, firing a trebuchet doing d8 times 10 damage, or a mangonel, like a first level character with a 4 reload score, you'd have to roll 4 on your d4 for you to be able to effectively reload a mangonel as part of the attack action. If you fail to reload the weapon, you then spend either another attack action or a reaction to command the crew separately to reload the weapon. Hurry up! Load the weapon! And now they've spent that extra hustle to get the weapon reloaded. You can now fire again if you have any attack actions left. So like a 5th level fighter can make an attack action. If they fail to reload, use your reaction to force reload, and then fire again using your secondary action. If that second attack doesn't succeed at reloading, then that weapon can't make any opportunity attacks. You can fire multiple weapons, and until your next round when you reload it. Or your friend, another character on the team, can then take command of the team for the rest of the round, and then use their action or reaction to force to have the crew reload. So you can have 2 characters commanding crews of siege weapons in tandem with each other, spending their action economy as a group. Like between you and, say, the bard, you've got 2 reactions, 2 bonus actions, and 3 attacks. So you could attack. The bard could use another attack also to reload the weapon. Then the fighter could use another attack to fire, or the fighter could use an attack action, reload using a reaction, attack again, the bard would then have a reaction or an action to help you reload again if necessary, and if successful, could then use his single attack to have a third attack that round with the ballistas. But if you stack up the number of ballistas that you're using, you could have 3d4 times 10 damage, all attack at once. But if you don't roll a 6 or better on your command die, all three of these weapons need separate actions to reload, which we describe in the reload mechanics further up above. So you can deal larger damage as you gain higher levels. You can reliably, like a 14th level character rolling a D10 command die, basically 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 on, you could basically have a 50-50 chance of being able to have all three of these weapons fire and automatically reload to fire again. So your 14th level or 13th level character would be dealing 3d4 times 10 damage per attack. And if it's a fighter, you've got 3 attacks per round plus a reaction. So you can fire your volley, like you can fire your volley, and if you roll a 6 or above, you can have all of them reload and you can do it again. Or you can spin another attack to fire all the volleys again. You can spin an attack to reload automatically, and then you'd have that last attack to fire all again. Or you fire, you botch the shot, you then use your reaction to reload. That gives you 2 attacks left. If you're lucky with your second attack, that's a second 3d4 that you attack with. And now if they botch their if you don't roll your, like if you roll 5 or below, then you botch the reload, you could use your last attack to reload, or you could just like shoot somebody with your crossbow or something independently, and then have somebody else on their team use their reaction or their action economy to reload and continue firing. So you can have a group of people firing all these weapons together in basically in burst shots. And squadrons work the same way, except that individual ships, they're individual siege weapons, their entire ships loaded with siege weapons that can fire multiple volleys together. So the reload score just increases in size, which we'll look at when we get back into the siege section, or into the squadron and fleet section, which we'll get to probably in about 2 weeks. Quick crash course for you guys, but again, I'm going through the process of learning how to talk about these things. So me going on these little micro rants talking about the mechanics is me basically practicing for when I do the full walkthrough, or like if I do a weekend tear out, I'll have practice in talking about this stuff. So thanks for tolerating me during this time of learning. Here's a secondary. I'll have leg basically like this, but you won't see this leg, so I don't really need to break myself in figuring out how to do it, but I do need to have it properly positioned here so I can make sure that the perspective of the weapon itself is proper. That'll do something like this. How are we doing on time? 7:29. Yeah. Oh, I'm on a half-hour timer today instead of a 20-minute timer. No wonder things feel stretched. So I stream 6 days a week, Monday through Friday. I do Spelljammer Art like this. On Monday and Thursday nights, including tonight, we do creature and NPC token production and map production, cartography for the Eberron adventure that will also be publishing on DMsGuild. And of course, I'm using the royal we in this instance. Andy Headley, Stuart Braz, and I have created a Eberron adventure for 8th level characters that will be publishing on DMsGuild, as mentioned. So we do the artwork, the cartography, the creature tokens, all the assets that you need for the adventure we create here on stream. And once we're done with the editing of that adventure, we'll be doing page layouts as well, which I anticipate to be in February. Once this book publishes, that will open up the door for us to be able to finish the Eberron stuff and continue moving forward. I'll make sure that I have... too weird. Basically like that. I'm also here during weekdays, typically on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, but this week will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, including today. In about 4 hours from now, Mark will be back, and we'll be working on the Martial Powers project. You can check out that playlist. We're up to episode, I think, 98 now. That we're building an alternate magic mana system for martial characters that's similar but distinct from spellcasting. For us to have a different type of power system and resource that martial characters can use to give them the same flexibility and decision making and optimization that spellcasters have. More so, arguably even more so, martial characters need optimization options and playstyle decisions because they're the ones that are going to be taking the damage most of the time for the spellcasters. So having options for them to build their own risk-reward sequences during combat is a seriously good leg up for just martial character design in general. But hold on real quick. Let me distort this. There's that. That feels pretty good. Make sure that foot is positioned properly for perspective. So yeah, mounted weapons have a reload score of 1, so they're always going to be able to reload and fire again. Exception to that is you can fire. You have the Eldritch Cannon can fire multiple times per round. Again, it has a reload score of 1. But if you use a spell level to amplify the damage to deal siege damage instead, that's only once per round. So that's an action. See, as an action, a spellcaster can deal siege damage by spending a spell slot as listed above. For example, a 7th level sorcerer can deal 2d4 force damage as an attack action, and spending a 4th level spell slot deals d8 times 10. Monsters with magical abilities but no spell slots can roll a recharge die with a target number of 6 as detailed in the Amplifier's monster section below. The higher rank of a monster it is with a higher CR, the more of a bonus it gets to its die roll. So it rolls a d6 and then plus whatever its rank is. So like up to first, we've looked at this. CR1 is first rank, CR14 is 5th rank, and then it scales in between. So a Beholder is a 4th rank creature, so it would roll a d6 plus 4, and all it has to roll is a 6 to be able to successfully recharge an Eldritch Cannon to be able to fire with an Ice Stalk Cannon again, right? So on a 6-sided die, it has a plus 4, so it only has to roll a 2 or above. So it's almost guaranteed to be able to reload and fire its arcane, its Ice Stalk Cannon once per round. But it's dealing with that same like recharge, like that reload. It's a recharge mechanic. It's kind of the same thing, but calculated slightly differently. Fun stuff. Let me. I see that I have a tilt in these hips that are wrong, so I need to go back through and fix that. think free transform, distort, should serve us okay here. There we go. Yeah, that feels more right. Let's grab this. I can actually tilt this leg out a little bit more. There we go. That feels a lot better. Cool. Now we're going to take him and drop that down and push this forward here, because this angle is wrong now. So we're going to have to fix the perspective at the base of this to match the perspective of the crew member. So it's roughly, yeah, that's roughly correct. Let's push that up just a little bit more. Doo-doo-doo. Mind the gap. We go to work. That's where we go. I'm almost out of time. Oh no, it's only 10:38. Oh my doorbell. I got 17 minutes, so we're good. Hold on, let me fix my chair. Let me fix my chair. Get my butt cushion good. There we go. Just go like that. Let's drop this down and pull this forward. You can get that leg set proper. Skew. We're going to distort. There we go. We want to get that foot out from inside that base. So you just need to broaden its stance a bit. Turn this a little bit so the knee isn't facing so forward. Like that. It's fairly well aligned. I think the perspective here is going to be good enough that we can keep that. There, that might be the best way to do this, just to raise them up a little bit. Yeah. There we go. And I can actually afford to grab this here and put it down a touch. There we go. Cool. Proper proportions. Skip a beat, yo. Skip a beat. We can just take the rail. And keep that there. Let's take the flinger and just pull that back a touch here. And we'll probably see the Elder's Cannon. What we'll be able to do is we'll just basically rebuild the harpoon flinger as the cannon here, so we can use the same base and posture for the crew. That'll work out. There, good. Let's stack these in the right order. Guy in the back, then we have the base, and then the actual weapon. The mounting, I guess, is what we're calling it. That's the mount. Up. Vom. There we go, like that. This line isn't very important because a lot of it, as you can see, is going to get blocked by the rail, but what it does is it sets the, it's literally the base that we're going to have our perspective hinging on. Pardon the puns. But it's important. You gotta, all the little details, you gotta make sure all the little details work even if they're not going to be seen. So that's why you want to do like this stacking method of separating your layers so that you aren't making any assumptions about how things sit. So when you actually integrate them all together, they fit properly. That's just composition and design. But you gotta point it out, because if you aren't thinking about it, you need to. Because you'll end up like, what's wrong with this picture? And if you don't think about those, how the different elements in the picture are interacting, you'll miss it. go. Touch. Well, my hopes and dreams of having the flinger done this episode is probably wrong. I mean, it's not wrong to have hopes and dreams. I mean, that's not the takeaway here. The takeaway is that I am misjudging the amount of time it takes for me to be able to create something, as usual. Again, this is going to be obviously concealed behind this rail, but you want to make sure you get it done right. Whew, man, I can feel the hunger coming on. I got hunger. Me a breakfast salad. Yeah, I'd probably get away with a thick line there instead of like a frame. Okay, so far so good. So what? Let's drop these down and then boom, drop our. Get out of the way. Drop the opacity on these a little bit further. There. Well, I'm really breaking this thing down frame by frame. I'm actually okay with that. Here. There we go. What's up? Hey, what's up, Zona? A lot of my encounters are devastated depending on who gets the fire. Oh, I see. Hold on, let me make sure I read that proper. Just back a bit here. Broadsides in Spelljammer are so devastating with a well-trained crew. A lot of my encounters are devastated depending on who gets the fire to the volley. Right on, right on. What sort of a system are you using for your Spelljammer currently? Yeah, if you hadn't seen it, you can check earlier in the like maybe 15 minutes ago. I don't know if you caught it or not, but we were talking about the reloading score for multiple siege weapons. With the command die that we used, so you could have you can have fire all weapons on a ship, and you'd be able to do massive damage to the volley, but then having to reset all of the weapons to get them to coordinate their attacks again. That's where your action economy gets chewed up. So you can always get if you have all weapons ready, you can always fire all weapons as a single volley to be able to do a big punch. But then it might take 2 or 3 rounds for your team to be able to it could take either 2 or 3 people, or if left on his own devices like a single siege commander, it might take 2 or 3 rounds to get all those weapons coordinated again. So a lot of times you'll have an initial volley, and then you'll break down the siege weapons to individual siege crews that like a fighter might command 1 or 2 siege weapons, while your ranger might command a siege weapon, and maybe your bard or whatever is commanding another siege weapon while your while your cleric's piloting, for instance, or whatever. So you can have that first initial kick of that volley and then break up the action economy to oversee and maintain movement of the squads as individual shots from there forward. Or if you have a really well-tuned team, you can eat all your action economy as a group together to have a single volley, and then have multiple characters on your team use their action economy or reactions to reload all the weapons. So then it's like if you have like 11th level fighter that has 3 attacks, you can use like fire all weapons as a single volley, and then fighter uses a reaction, cleric, bard uses a reaction, and ranger uses a reaction to reload all 3 of the weapons here. And then the fighter again fire all weapons, and then that whole volley goes off. And if your reload score, if you're not rolling that 6 or above on your proficiency die, then your whole team again, the ranger could use an attack to reload one weapon, the bard could use an attack to reload another weapon, the ranger could use his second attack to reload all the weapons. All 3 weapons are reloaded again. Fighter again, fire all weapons. So between 11th level characters, a bard, a ranger, and a fighter at 11th level can consistently fire a volley of 3 siege weapons together, dealing 3d, like if it's a trebuchet even, like 3d 8 times 10 damage as single volleys. But you have, in this instance, 3 volleys per round, but it's going to eat all the actions and reactions of 3 characters on your team, leaving only bonus actions open for the fighter, the bard, and the ranger to do whatever it is that they can find themselves to do with a bonus action, which might not be anything. So depending on what their characters are. Meanwhile, the cleric or maybe a rogue as a pilot is using action economy and reactions and stuff to scoot the ship around to engage with and potentially dogfight with other ships. So, or cast a spell and fire it through the helm to upscale damage or something, whatever it is that you're doing. But yeah, that's the general idea. So like side broad, like having all weapons firing at once is devastating. Like if in this instance these 3 ballistas doing 3d 4 times 10 damage, if you're gonna be able to fire that off 3 times in a round, that's going to average around what? Like around 65 damage a pop, maybe 70 damage a pop. You're going to be dealing on that. And if you're if a Star Moth, for instance, a 200-foot ship has 400 hit points, then that 70 points of damage, you're going to basically you'll basically be able to knock out that Star Moth in like 6-7 shots, most likely, unless the pilot of the Star Moth or the commander is going to eat damage off of that team. So like in Lazaraxis, a ship commander has like 92 hit points. A pilot has like 70 hit points. They're like CR 3 and 4 creatures, so they can take a lot of that damage. If you're going to deal 70 damage per hit, that siege command that pilot can take half of that damage and then heal herself as an action, and then be able to continue moving the ship. So you can eat up the action economy of the pilot by having them burn down their spell slots, healing themselves up. But doing that is going to artificially increase the amount of hits that ship is going to be able to take by like maybe 4 or 5 shots between the commander and the pilot, which is effectively giving you 10 shots with a volley of 3 ballistas against a single Star Moth. That's going to translate using typical character action economy, say at 5th or 7th level. That's going to equate to about 3 or 4 rounds of combat before you're able to drop that Star Moth to 0 damage, which effectively becomes your team as 5th or 6th, maybe 7th level characters fighting what's effectively a stone giant. Is going to deal that kind of damage. So it actually kind of works out. It's kind of cool. Oh, you're just using reworked AD&D rules up in 3. Oh, right on. Master C stuff, sure. And with the rework, you can target specific parts. Oh, right on. Yep. Such as, I got that. Yep. And then the ships can go second. Usually have debuffs. Parts of. Hey, right on, man. That's cool. That sounds like more of a like ship of the line sort of like a Salt Marshy sort of feel to it. AD second edition had a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh God, it's 8 o'clock. What happened to my timer? Did I pop my timer and reset it without looking? Crap, I gotta go. I'm over time. We'll pick up this conversation tomorrow, but I'll be back in about 3.5, 4-ish hours to do more martial powers, looking at the Artificer and Warlock. I'll be back on tonight doing character and map tokens. Yeah, probably creature tokens for the Eberron adventure. And right on, Zona. Hopefully catch up with you tomorrow and talk about it some more. Looking forward to it. I'm out of here, guys. See you later.